Think you have seen every type of recreational vehicle and motorhome out there? Think again. Today we are traveling back in time to uncover 10 of the most bizarre, weird, and absolutely genius vintage truck campers ever built. We're talking about vehicles so strange you will wonder how they ever legally hit the highway. Make sure you stick around until the very end because our number 10 spot features a mind-blowing 3-story mansion that somehow fits into the back of a regular pickup truck. It is mathematically terrifying. If you love weird automotive history, smash that subscribe button, ring the bell, and let us know in the comments which of these crazy campers you would actually live in. Welcome to Titan Factory. Let us roll. When you think of a heavy-duty camper, the absolute last vehicle that comes to mind is the tiny, underpowered Volkswagen Beetle. Yet in the late 1960s and 1970s, a small company in Costa Mesa, California, looked at the iconic VW Bug and decided it was the perfect foundation for a motorhome. Enter the Super Bugger. This wild contraption involved completely chopping off the body of a Beetle behind the front seats and dropping a miniature wood-framed camper shell directly onto the chassis. It featured a tiny Cinca stove and seating for two, offering the ultimate minimalist road trip experience, long before van life was a trending hashtag. However, this ambitious tiny home on wheels had a fatal flaw, which was the engine. The Super Bugger relied on the Beetle's stock air-cooled 4-cylinder engine, which produced a blistering 60 horsepower on a good day. The aerodynamics were practically non-existent, turning the vehicle into a giant sail whenever a crosswind hit, making it terrifying to drive above 50 miles per hour. Braking with the stock VW drum brakes while carrying all that extra wooden weight, which added roughly 500 pounds, was less of a mechanical function and more of a deeply spiritual exercise in prayer on steep mountain roads. Back in 1975, you could buy a Super Bugger fully assembled for around $6,000. Because they are so incredibly rare and nostalgic, a fully restored Super Bugger can easily fetch over $40,000 at classic car auctions. That is a massive price tag for a car that struggles to outrun a bicycle. Weirdness meter 9 out of 10. Practicality 3 out of 10. But if you think putting a house on a VW Bug is a recipe for disaster, just wait until you see what Chevrolet decided to do when they tried to build the ultimate factory off-roader. In 1976, Chevrolet decided that buying a truck and adding an aftermarket camper was simply too much work for the average American consumer. Their solution was the Chevy Blazer Chalet, an absolute unicorn in the automotive world. Chevy partnered with the famous RV manufacturer Chinook to take their rugged 4-wheel drive K5 Blazer and permanently integrate a fiberglass pop-up camper shell directly into the body. This was not a slide-in camper. The cab and the living quarters were completely connected, allowing you to walk from the driver's seat straight into the back, featuring a stove sink and icebox. But as brilliant as a factory 4x4 RV sounds, the Blazer Chalet came with a severe, fatal flaw that ultimately doomed the project. The fiberglass camper shell was incredibly heavy, adding nearly 1,000 pounds to the top of the vehicle. This completely threw off the Blazer's center of gravity when taking this supposedly capable off-roader onto rocky trails. The top-heavy design made it feel like it was constantly on the verge of tipping over. The immense weight sagged the rear suspension and put tremendous strain on the drivetrain, making it heavily compromised as a daily driver. Because of these severe driving issues, Chevrolet only managed to produce around 1,780 of these units before quietly pulling the plug in 1977. When it debuted, the Blazer Chalet cost roughly $9,000 to $11,000. However, because of the booming popularity of overlanding today, surviving chalets have become highly coveted collector's items. Pristine models are now selling for upwards of $50,000 to $60,000. Weirdness meter 7 out of 10. Off-road terrifyingness 10 out of 10. Next, let us look at an airplane transformed into a motorhome. If you were driving down the highway in the late 1960s and saw the Ultra van approaching in your rearview mirror, you probably thought you were being invaded by aliens. Designed by David Peterson, a professional aircraft designer, the Ultra van looks exactly like a giant aluminum jelly bean on wheels. Peterson hated the heavy, lumbering, boxy RVs of the era, so he applied aerospace engineering to motorhome design. The Ultra van featured an aluminum monocoque construction, meaning it had no heavy steel frame. It was essentially an airplane fuselage without wings, packing a full kitchen bathroom and bedroom inside. The true magic was its weight. The entire 22-foot motorhome weighed only around 3,400 pounds, which is less than many modern compact sport utility vehicles today. However, the fatal flaw was its original choice of propulsion. To keep the interior floor completely flat, Peterson utilized the rear-mounted air-cooled flat-six engine from a Chevrolet Corvair. While innovative, the Corvair engine only produced around 110 horsepower. Paired with a basic automatic transmission, the early Ultravan was notoriously sluggish, struggling to maintain 50 miles per hour on long, steep inclines in the Rocky Mountains. Originally priced around $8,000, production became a frantic scramble when Chevy discontinued the Corvair engine in 1969. The company tried fitting heavier V8 Marine engines, but it ultimately failed. Today, these incredibly rare toasters on wheels have a massive cult following. Finding one is incredibly hard, but fully restored models can demand prices over $40,000 from quirky automotive historians. Weirdness meter 10 out of 10. Chance of being mistaken for a UFO 100%. Up next, a motorhome that actually shifted gears like a European sports car. In the 1980s, motorhomes were massive, fuel-guzzling bricks. Bill Collins, an automotive engineer famous for co-designing the iconic DeLorean DMC-12 time machine car, decided to change that forever by creating the Vixen 21 TD. Collins wanted a recreational vehicle that drove exactly like a European sports sedan, and the Vixen was an absolute engineering marvel. It was so remarkably low to the ground that it could easily fit inside a standard suburban garage. It featured a wind tunnel, tested fiberglass body, a massive panoramic windshield, and a phenomenally low center of gravity for high-speed stability. To make it even more European, Collins powered the 21-foot vehicle with a rear-mounted BMW turbo diesel engine, paired with a Renault 5-speed manual transmission. Because of its aerodynamic shape and lightweight frame, the Vixen weighed around 5,000 pounds and achieved an unbelievable 30 miles per gallon. However, it possessed a fatal flaw. It was completely misunderstood by the market. Traditional American RV buyers wanted massive living rooms and automatic transmissions. They absolutely did not want to manually shift gears while sitting inches off the pavement in a vehicle that felt like a submarine. The roof was so low you could not stand up inside unless you popped up the hinged roof section, frustrating older buyers. Because it alienated its target audience, the company went bankrupt after building just 587 units. Back in 1986, this technological marvel would set you back $40,000. Today, tech-loving nomads snap them up for $30,000 to $50,000. Weirdness meter 8 out of 10. Driving dynamics 10 out of 10. But while the Vixen failed, our next camper gained a legendary reputation for off-grid reliability. Long before modern influencers were spending hundreds of thousands of dollars on custom Mercedes Sprinter vans, the ultimate off-grid adventure vehicle was the Toyota Sunraider 4x4. Introduced in the 1980s by Gardner Pacific, this was a brilliant combination of Toyota's legendary, indestructible Hilux pickup truck chassis and a lightweight aerodynamic fiberglass camper shell. Unlike modern campers made of easily water-damaged wood and cheap siding, the Sunraider's two-piece molded fiberglass shell was virtually leak-proof. With Toyota's bulletproof four-wheel drive system and a compact footprint, this little beast could climb up rocky trails that left traditional massive RVs completely stranded. However, the early Toyota RVs hit a terrifying mechanical, fatal flaw that haunted owners. The original models, weighing around 5,000 pounds, heavily overloaded Toyota's standard half-ton rear axle. This axle was fitted with a fake dual-wheel setup known in the community as Foolies. The immense weight of the fiberglass shell water and gear put extreme stress on this 5-lug axle. Stories began pouring in of rear axles literally snapping in half while driving down the highway at 60 miles per hour, causing catastrophic accidents. Toyota eventually issued massive recalls to upgrade them to 1-ton, full-floating axles. In the 80s, a brand new Sunraider was an affordable $20,000. Today, prepare for a massive price shock, because they are the ultimate retro overlanding rig with unmatched Toyota reliability. A pristine axle-upgraded Sunraider 4x4 will easily sell for $40,000 to $60,000 more than some brand new luxury sport utility vehicles on the market. Weirdness, meter 6 out of 10. Legendary status, 11 out of 10. But before Toyota mastered the compact motorhome, an industrial forklift company tried to revolutionize the entire market with a front-wheel drive steel beast. Back in the 1960s, before the modern motorhome industry even existed, the Clark Equipment Company, a brand famous for building heavy-duty forklifts and tractors, decided to build a recreational vehicle. The result was the 1963 Clark Cortez, and it was decades ahead of its time. Instead of building a wooden box on top of a standard rear-wheel drive truck chassis, Clark engineers built a fully integrated all-steel unibody vehicle. More impressively, they made it front-wheel drive. By pulling the vehicle from the front and eliminating the bulky rear drive shaft, the Cortez featured an incredibly low flat floor, allowing adults to stand up comfortably inside. It was a masterpiece of industrial packaging. But the Cortez's greatest strength was also its fatal flaw, the all-steel construction. Because it was built by a forklift company, they built it like a tank. The vehicle weighed a massive 7,000 pounds. Early models were powered by an incredibly anemic Chrysler Slant 6 engine, making it painfully slow and struggling to reach highway speeds. Worse still, the entirely steel body lacked modern rust-proofing techniques. If you lived in an area with salted winter roads, the bottom of your innovative motorhome would quickly turn to orange rust dust. They were heavy, slow, and prone to dissolving in the rain. Originally selling for around $10,000 in the 1960s, surviving Cortez models are incredibly rare today. A fully restored rust-free model can fetch upwards of $30,000 from niche collectors who truly appreciate its unique industrial history. Weirdness, meter 7 out of 10. Structural rigidity, 10 out of 10. The front-wheel drive concept of the Cortez was undeniably brilliant, but it took an automotive giant to perfect it into the most visually stunning and iconic motorhome of the 1970s. When General Motors decides to enter a market, they do not do it quietly. They drop a hammer. In 1973, they unveiled the GMC motorhome, a vehicle that looked like it drove straight out of a sci-fi movie. Unlike other manufacturers who bought chassis from truck companies and bolted wooden boxes onto them, GM designed their motorhome entirely from scratch. Utilizing the massive front-wheel drive, V8 powertrain from the Oldsmobile Toronado, the GMC featured an impossibly low, sleek aerodynamic profile. It utilized a revolutionary tandem wheel air suspension system, making it ride like a luxury Cadillac while looking like a spaceship. Weighing in at over 10,000 pounds and stretching 26 feet long, it cruised effortlessly at 70 miles per hour. Despite being considered the best driving motorhome ever produced, it was killed by a fatal flaw entirely outside of its control: global geopolitics. The massive 455 cubic inch V8 engine got horrendous fuel economy, averaging around 8 to 10 miles per gallon. Right as production hit its stride, the 1973 oil crisis struck America. Gas lines stretched for miles, fuel prices skyrocketed, and suddenly no one wanted to buy a massive, thirsty luxury land yacht. GM simply could not justify the manufacturing costs during the fuel crisis, and production was abruptly halted in 1978 after nearly 13,000 units were built. In the 70s, this ultimate luxury machine cost upwards of $35,000. Today, the GMC motorhome has one of the most passionate fan bases in the world. Fully modernized and updated versions are routinely sold for over $100,000, proving that brilliant design is truly timeless. Weirdness meter 8 out of 10, sci-fi swagger 10 out of 10. But what if you wanted to build a weird camper yourself? In March 1974, Popular Mechanics magazine published do-it-yourself plans by designer Robert Q. Riley for an incredible home-built camper called the Boon Bug. If you had a few $100s, some woodworking tools, and a lot of patience, you could transform a junked Volkswagen bus into an angular, futuristic off-road machine that looked exactly like a lunar rover from NASA. The plans called for stripping the 1-ton VW chassis down to the bare metal and constructing an entirely new body using nothing but plywood, polyurethane foam, and fiberglass resin, creating a truly aggressive cab-over driving position. Powered by the original VW engine, it topped out at around 65 miles per hour. The fatal flaw of the Boon Bug was entirely dependent on the skill of the person building it. Because it was a DIY project made primarily of wood, its highway safety and structural durability were highly questionable. If you did not seal the plywood perfectly with fiberglass, a few rainy days would turn your sci-fi rover into a rotting, moldy sponge. In the event of a high-speed crash, the wooden body offered virtually zero structural protection, meaning the driver unfortunately became the crumple zone. It was a brilliant concept for a cheap adventure vehicle, but relying on amateur carpenters to build highway vehicles resulted in terrifyingly sketchy creations. Because it was a DIY project, the original cost was just the price of a used VW and some lumber, maybe $1,000 total. Today, finding a surviving, well-built Boon Bug is nearly impossible. When they pop up, they sell for $15,000 to $20,000, purely for their retro-futuristic charm. Weirdness meter 11 out of 10. Crash safety rating 5 out of 10. Next, a fiberglass behemoth defining American family vacations. If you ever took a road trip in America between the 1960s and the 1980s, you almost certainly saw a Dodge Travco dominating the highway. Originally conceived by Ray Frank of Frank Motorhomes, the man who actually coined the term motorhome, the Travco was a massive leap forward for the industry. It featured an unmistakable aerodynamic two-piece fiberglass body bolted onto a heavy-duty Dodge truck chassis. It was one of the very first Class A motorhomes to offer true luxury, featuring rooftop air conditioning, flushing toilets, and full kitchens. Looking like a giant, comfortable loaf of bread cruising the Travco's fatal flaw, however, was its sheer, unadulterated mass. Weighing anywhere from 10,000 to 14,000 pounds, driving one of these fiberglass giants was exactly like steering a commercial cargo ship. The steering was famously vague, the brakes required massive leg strength to operate, and the tall, top-heavy vehicle suffered from terrifying body roll on winding mountain roads. Despite having a powerful Dodge 5.8 engine under the doghouse console, the immense weight of the thick fiberglass and heavy wood interior meant that getting up to highway speeds of 65 miles per hour took an absolute eternity. It was a luxurious house, but actually driving the house required the steady nerves of a commercial truck driver. A brand new Dodge Travco in 1965 cost around $9,000. Today, they are beloved by vintage RV restorers everywhere. A gutted project might cost a few thousand, but a fully restored mid-century modern Travco can easily command $50,000 or more at auction. Weirdness meter 5 out of 10. Nostalgia factor 10 out of 10. We've seen UFOs and VWs with houses on them, but nothing prepares you for our final mind-bending camper. Prepare to have your brain broken by the Del Rey Tri-Level Camper. In the late 1960s, slide-in truck campers were very popular, but interior space was always highly limited. The mad scientists at Del Rey looked at a standard pickup truck and said, "What if we build a camper with 3 completely separate floors?" And that is exactly what they did. This towering monster, famously introduced around 1968, featured a top-level cab-over bedroom, a mid-level living room and dining area, and a sunken lower-level rear kitchen and entryway. It was an absolute architectural marvel. It somehow fit a split-level suburban home into the standard bed of a pickup truck. But the fatal flaw of the tri-level is probably obvious to anyone who understands basic physics. It was insanely dangerously heavy, weighing roughly 3,000 pounds just for the camper shell alone. Truck suspensions in the 1960s were not designed to carry a literal 3-story building. Putting a fully loaded Del Rey tri-level into the back of a standard pickup truck would cause the rear bumper to practically scrape the pavement, while the front tires barely touch the ground. Driving at highway speeds of 60 miles per hour with a center of gravity so absurdly high meant that taking a sharp turn or encountering a strong gust of wind felt like a near-death experience. In 1968, this 3-story luxury camper cost a premium $3,000 just for the shell. Today, a fully intact tri-level is the holy grail of vintage campers, with collectors willing to pay over $20,000 just for the shell. Weirdness meter 12 out of 10. Physics defying madness 100 out of 10. It is a true marvel of crazy engineering. From tiny VW bugs struggling to climb hills at 40 miles per hour to three-story mansions balancing precariously in truck beds, the golden age of bizarre campers proves that human ingenuity has absolutely no limits. Which of these crazy vintage rigs would you be brave enough to drive cross-country? Drop your answer in the comments below. If you love this deep dive into weird automotive history, make sure to hit that subscribe button on Titan Factory and check out our other videos. Thanks for watching, and we will see you on the next one.